So, um, hello everyone. So for today's video, we were going to tackle about the Americanization of Philippine English, a recent diachronic change in spelling and lexis by Robert Foch. There's a Foch. With the rise of the United States of America as the major world power in the middle of 20th century, American English gained in prestige and increasingly influenced other varieties of English. This led to the spread of phonological patterns such as realization of post-vocalic, or to be exact, coda, R or R, in the words such as car, where it would not be realized in British English. American influence has also been found in the recent diachronic change of syntax, where differences are mostly a question of preference, or in other words, frequency. A decline of frequency of the present perfect, for example, has been attributed to the influence of American English, unlike most national varieties of English, which arose in the context of British colonialization, colonialism rather. Philippine English has never been under the major influence of British English. In fact, the Philippines were under American dominance in the first half of 20th century, and were thus influenced by American English. To be sure, several studies have provided evidence of this American influence in Philippine syntax, where it is not present to a much greater degree than other varieties of English spoken in Asia. However, contrast between British and American norms can also be found in spelling and lexis. These phenomena have received much less attention in the study of Philippine English, and it is the aim of the present study to contribute towards filling this gap. Next is the Americanization of English around the world. Varieties of English spoken around the world increasingly orient themselves towards American English. Previous studies of a range of varieties have provided evidence of the adoption of perceived American characteristics in lexis and spelling, syntax and phonology, especially in post-vocalic R. This is probably due to the international prestige of American English enjoys. Speakers and writers that adopt features of American English might be trying, consciously and unconsciously, to present themselves as modern, cosmopolitan, and educated. However, it is not controversial in a local speech communities. Philippine English, however, would appear to be special case as one of the few varieties that drew over major inputs during its foundation phase of American English. In 1898, the United States of America took control of Philippines and only relinquished it in 1946. Even in British English, stereotypically American spelling and lexis is not absent. At the same time, and the same is true for British spelling and lexis in American. In the realm of phonology, things are more complex in that not all speakers of American realize coda R in the words car, because there are also people who speak the word car into ka. So the R there is basta nawala ang R. The R is not pronounced. So, and some speaker of British do realize it. Received pronunciation standard of British English do not realize it. However, Moreover, in some cases of American variant is not actually more frequent in American than British variant. British variant. Uh, of the ways that Americanization and Britanization can be studied, variation in spelling arguably has been has advantages over syntactic, lexical, and phonological variation, and should be greater focus in research. Spelling is a variable is easier to operationalize than syntactic variables and less socially meaningful than phonological variation, making it easier to distinguish local from geographic factors. Spelling is also non-functional and largely arbitrary, unlike syntactic and lexical variation. A potential disadvantage is that spelling may be subject to editorial policy and perhaps to a greater degree of syntactic variables. Next is Americanization, Philippine English, and recent diachronic change. At first glance, it might appear that there are no question of any Americanization of Philippine English. So, insofar as its first states was American English, not British English. As for most varieties of English, however, there are at least two ways in which the term might be useful applied in the analysis of the development of Philippine English. The first is American English itself is constantly undergoing change, as all languages and dialects do. As it continues to develop, Philippine English might follow some of these changes. Next is at the time of the foundation of Philippine English, it was in all likelihood not an exact copy of American English, but was also influenced by other factors. Transfer from local languages, such as Tagalog, the context of transmission of the English language, acquisition of English, often in formal context, and other factors. Philippine English was thus likely different from American English from the outset, which means that it could have subsequently become more similar to American English. Uh, even as Philippine English is in many respects similar to American English, there are also aspects in which it neither emulates American or nor British English, but follows its own emerging norms. Trace number or normative patterns in the recent development of Philippine English modal system and the use of subjunctive at the same time as they identify aspects in which Philippine English has followed recent diachronic change previously described for American English. Okay, the two corpora used in the study are not exact parallel. For example, the ICE-PHI contains both spoken and written material, while Phil Brown has own written data. The written registered contain the two corpora that are comparable, contain press, academic, and creative writing. Both corpora were automatically annotated for parts of speech with the clause 6 tag set, which proved to be useful for some of the queries. So first is the ending ISC and IZE and isation and zation. Many verbs ending in IEC, IZE tend to be spelled with a British English and with Z in American English. Tend to be spelled with S in British English. So, ang ISC is a British English if you're spelled organized and ISE with the ending of the word. So, it is under the British English, while organize, the organized word ending with IZE, it is in American English. It belongs in American English. And that it's also true for nouns in isation and isation derived from them. The situation is complicated um, somewhat by two considerations. So, for verbs and some verbs such as arise, misspelled with ISE with both varieties usually become ISE is not a suffix in this word. These are included from the analysis. For verbs and nouns, there were variations, so-called Oxford spelling, predicates spelling with IZE, so that there is some degree of variation in British English, although ISE is overall more frequent. In any case, it is probably fair to say that ISE is internationally perceived as a British and IZE is American spelling, which might will be more important in terms of influence and other varieties. So, yeah, mo na akong gisulti ganyan. So, next is ang ending OUR and OR. The alternate OUR or OR spelling occurs in the numbers of nouns and verbs, with British referring to spelling with an additional U. In the 1960s, data 6 of the 7 words occurred at least one in the British spelling, but altogether, only in 9 instances, or 1.8% of the time. In the 1990s, data has a 5 tokens, or 4%, with a British spelling, but this occur in just 2 words, behavior and honor. Yeah, and only 3 contexts, all from academic examples, academic writing. So we all know there are the differences in spelling when it comes to American and British English. For example, is the word color. So the ending OUR, yeah, is under in British English. Favor, labor, and savor. So, ano siya? Next is an ending OGUE and OG. So, a number of words ending in OGU in British spelling tend towards the more phonetic spelling with OG in the American tradition. Words of this class occurred 13 times in the 1960s data and only 4 times in the 1990s data, but exclusively in the British spelling. Next is the ending TRE and the TER. Some nouns commonly spelled with TRE in British English frequently and in TER in American English. The analysis here focuses on the theater and meter. So, in the 1960s, this word follows British spelling 27.7% of the time, but this was almost exclusively due to the cause of half of the instances of theater following British spelling. In the 1990s corpus, this word occurred only once and followed American spelling, as did all the instances of meter and derived the word. In other words, the seeming decline British spelling in the case of class of words might be due to lexical preferences that are not generalizable to the whole class. Next word is the double and single L. There is no class of words spelled in double L in British and single in American spelling. In other class with opposite pattern, the first class involves words such as traveling, travelers, canceling, counseling, and labeling. Mauna ni siya. Ang British English is only occur single L, while in American English, double L is occur. LL. Retention or elision of E. The last semantic spelling difference to be discussed involve a number of words that retain medial in a British spelling in cases where it is elided according to the American convention. Examples including aging, reteeing, and likable. Overall, the British pattern is very rare and occurs only 3 times each of the both corpora, which amounts to the relative frequency of 4.3 and 6.8% in the 1960s and 1990s data, respectively. Next is miscellaneous spelling differences. This category includes the following items: the Latin derived term for relative frequency to the base of 110 to be spelled with a space percent in British English, but without one in American English. The Philippine corpora anonymously follow the latter. For example, the 20 from the 1960s. So in British English, they spell percent in two words, per and cent, while in American English, it's spelled in one word. And in Philippine English, we follow the American spelling, the American spelling, the percent, the one word on how we spell those miscellaneous spelling. Next is abbreviated titles with and without period. A typological convention that differs between British and American English is the tradition of a period after the abbreviated title in American, but not in British spelling. So in American, in British, for example, is they abbreviate the word Mr. So the abbreviation of that word is MR. So in British, their abbreviation of Mr. is without the period after it, while in American it has period after it. It is how American English abbreviated some of that kind of words. If we abbreviated it. So in Philippine English, we follow that kind of abbreviated titles that after that word or spelling, we put period in it. So that's all for today, and I hope you learned something.